Welcome to Mastery in the Making, a fresh new podcast by Le Cordon Bleu Australia. Join us as we deep dive into the minds of industry experts, entrepreneurs, and the voices of Le Cordon Bleu, the world's leading education provider in culinary arts and hospitality management. From expert lecturers to our incredible students and alumni, we'll uncover the secrets, stories, and skills that make this industry a world of endless possibilities. So, if you're a seasoned chef, aspiring hotelier, or simply want to keep your finger on the pulse, consider this your ultimate guide to culinary and business innovation. I'm your host, Stephanie Valudos, and welcome to Mastery in the Making. Today, I'm very excited to chat with Le Cordon Bleu Sydney's Higher Education Centre leader, Brooke Cramond. Brooke is passionate about nurturing Australia's up-and-coming hospitality talent, and today we're going to talk about job readiness and setting yourself up for success. Welcome to the show, Brooke.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Brooke, for those who don't know, what does your role at Le Cordon Bleu Sydney involve exactly?
Okay, so as you said, I perform a role which is called centre leader. So what it in a nutshell, I'm the head teacher for higher education. So we run the bachelor degrees for the Sydney campus. So we have a couple of degrees that we run. We have the bachelor's degree in international restaurant management and a bachelor's degree in international hotel management, which I'll get to shortly and kind of cover all of that and what that entails. So my role is management of the student body. So that's one of the most important focuses of this role. And managing study plans and making sure that everyone is doing what they need to be doing in order to achieve their qualification at the end. So I also manage a team of lecturers. And so we have many lecturers, and the lecturers that we have areas of expertise. So we have some lecturers who are what we refer to as generalists. And so the generalist would hold at least a master's in business administration. And that person would be able to teach multiple subjects. So could be teaching a finance subject or a marketing subject, human resources. It just really depends. Then we have our specialists. So, for example, we have a practicing barrister who takes our law subject. So we have multiple lecturers that I manage within my role as well. And then we also have all of the administration stuff that I do, which I won't bore you with.
Sounds like you have a very, very diverse role there, Brooke.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things that I most enjoy is ensuring that the students, and this is what we're going to be talking about shortly, but is really ensuring that the students are engaged when they're in class, and really collaborating with the other lecturers who are not only experts in business, but are experts in teaching and delivery. And so keeping students engaged when they're in the classroom. So this is something that we work on a continual basis to keep up to date with modern technologies and modern, what we call pedagogic practices.
Mm-hmm. So, and how long have you been at Le Cordon Bleu?
I've been with Le Cordon Bleu for 5 years, and or just on 5 years. And the first 3.5 of those was as a lecturer. And my areas of expertise, I'm a generalist as well, but my areas of expertise are really human resource management, marketing, strategy, leadership, very much people-oriented types of subjects, because I really enjoy, I guess, the psychology behind the way people think and feel and behave and all of those elements. So yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm sure in those 5 years that you've been there, you've seen many students who start out as nervous young individuals who are super keen to take on the hospitality world with both hands. How do you sort of ensure that these students leave as graduates who are ready to take on the world?
So we get some students that have what we call articulated through vocational education and training. So we've got advanced diploma students who come into the degree. So they do have some knowledge of, not some, they have quite an extensive knowledge of the industry. They have the education to back that up, and they've usually been working in the industry. So we have those types of students. We may have students that have they've come from their country, and then they may have worked in a family business, or they've been exposed to hospitality in their country, and then they come over here to study to further their knowledge. And then we get people who have never had any exposure to hospitality and never studied anything to do with hospitality. So we do get a range of students. So we develop the student through different stages of the degree. So it's a 3-year degree. So the first year being subjects that are really an introduction to the industry. And then at the beginning of their second year, we send students out on what we call work integrated learning. So they spend about 4 months working out in the industry. They come back and do a range of subjects that are a little bit more challenging. Then at the beginning of their third year, they go out onto work integrated learning again. And then when they come back from that's another 4 months. When they come back from that work integrated learning, then they do their final 8 subjects, which are again more challenging, and the more senior subjects. And so it's through that knowledge development is one of the areas that we work on with the students. And then the work integrated learning factor is designed to develop the skills of the individual. Because with the hospitality industry, it's not only knowledge that a person needs, it's the skills and the attributes as well. And then within all of that, we attempt with the way that we teach to develop those, what you often hear called soft skills, but it's the attributes and behaviours really of an individual that are highly relevant for a successful career in the hospitality industry.
What are some of those soft skills? Can you give me any examples?
Yeah, so we have a range of skills that we would particularly look for. Things like, well, so we want to think about things like, if we look at it from the perspective of customer service. So what would make a person a good customer service agent? And, we've all eaten out, gone out to dinner, or, had a drink in a bar, or done things like that. And we want to encounter people who are friendly, not too friendly, but friendly, approachable, open, can talk to people, they're efficient. So just from the customer service perspective, traits like this. And then, and so that might be some foundational attributes that we're looking for. And then as we progress into other areas or other skill areas, and as the student moves up through with more seniority in the program, we start looking at more challenging skills like problem solving, analysis, solving complex problems, or critical analysis. And so you want to, what we're trying to do is trying to develop not only the knowledge, or develop the knowledge acquisition element through, delivering of concepts, understanding concepts, things like that. But then we want to look at how do we develop that student to be ready for the workplace with all of these attributes, and we want the student to be ready when they move out into the workplace. And there are multiple reasons for that.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to next ask. Why is it so important that, I guess, in this day and age, where there's so much competition out there and so many people hungry for work, why is it so important for them to be fully prepared for the real working world?
We want the student to understand the concepts, of course, the concepts and the knowledge, and have that. Like, for example, I use this example. I probably sound like I'm really dull, but there's something called a pestle analysis. And so pestle is PESTLE. So pestle being political and economics, societal, technological, legal, and environmental. And what this actually means is that Students will then learn to understand how these macro environmental factors will impact a business. But we don't stop there, because a student won't leave our classroom and go out there into a business environment and, a manager will say, okay, tell me what pestle means. Like, they probably will never get asked that. And they'll never get asked to describe what the P and the E and the S and the T and the L, like, they're not going to be doing that. But what they will be asked is or what they will be expected, really, is that they will know that if we have any kind of political event, let's just say, or we have some kind of economic crisis, that of course that's going to affect our business. So the student is going, if they've got a degree, a business degree from the Cordon Bleu, that means something. And so when the employer sees that, then they are going to know that the student is going to be able to consider that once there is if there is something happening in the macro environment that is going to affect the business, and that person is going to be able to then consider how that's going to affect the business and then take action to support the business, or whether, and even to the point where whether they need to consider whether action needs to be taken or not, and or whether they just need to kind of observe the situation. So it's becoming a really aware individual, and that's what we want to achieve when we're teaching and developing students.
Mm-hmm. And what, I guess, are some of the things that might go wrong if a person isn't completely job ready and has all these skills and hasn't been taught these soft skills throughout their education?
When a person goes out into the workplace and they have not only the knowledge, but then they have, these skills and attributes, they are more productive and more efficient. So when they move out into that workplace, they're ready. They, as we say, hit the ground running. That then reduces their stress level. So they're not panicking, they're not stressing out, going, oh my God, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know, this world is unfamiliar. They are more resilient and more adaptable to the workplace, and which therefore makes them, more attractive to a potential employer. But if they're not ready and they're not job ready, if they don't understand the industry, they don't understand the role that they're supposed to be performing, then they're of course going to then be, highly stressed. They may have a really poor experience. They may be at risk of losing the job because they're not capable of performing, just some of the most basic tasks. They may not be able to network with people. They may not know much. So there's like a plethora of reasons of or impacts that could be detrimental to the student and the business by them not being ready to work.
Yeah, right. And what are some of the, I guess, top tips that you could give a student who has finally graduated from the Cordon Bleu? They've got their certificate. How do they land the job of their dreams? What do they need to do?
I think it's really important for individuals to understand themselves. So self-reflection is a really important skill for students to have. So this is one of the first soft skills that we introduce the students to. And so self-reflection, meaning, who am I as a person? What am I good at? What skills do I have? What am I capable of? What are my attributes? And that acknowledgement, but also then where can I grow and how can I develop myself? But in order for them to do that, they need to understand the industry and where the opportunities lie. So therefore, research. So a student or a person looking to move into the industry needs to research the industry. So what all of the elements of it. So businesses within the industry, particularly companies, like what company would this person like to work within? And we also look at an important factor being values and personal values. And what does a person stand for? Who am I when I show up every day? And, one of my personal values is integrity. And I do share that with my students all the time, because I really do believe that your word extremely important. It builds trust, and you have to do what you say that you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And obviously that's not always possible, but you deal with that. I always ask students to develop 3. You don't want to go nuts. And just really look at, okay, so who are you as an individual, and what can you offer? And also that then helps for students to align their goals and their employment goals with a company that has similar values, because a lot of companies do now have values that, and particularly hospitality, they're quite open about what their values are, which is a really great attraction technique, actually, from a human resource perspective. So if a student starts to be able to self-reflect and understand who they are, identify who their values are, do some research, and look for a company that they think that they'd be a really good fit, then that's a really great start. And I'm sorry, I know I'm going on a bit, but I've got one more part. It is, as often students say to me, I've never worked in the industry, how am I going to get my first job? And this is where, again, self-reflection comes into it, about what are your skills that are transferable. And again, this comes back to researching. So researching roles. So if a student's looking to take on a wait staff position, and they've never worked in the industry, I've got one student who was the captain of their basketball team in high school, but has never worked in the industry. So we had a look at what were the soft skills or the attributes that this student exhibited as the captain of the basketball team that she could then demonstrate as a potential employee to a hotel or a restaurant. And so she was able to identify, leadership, teamwork, a commitment. And she's now able to demonstrate through the learning about self-reflection. She's now able to understand how she can demonstrate that these skills are transferable.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that most of your students already have a level of all these attributes, and coming to Le Cordon Bleu kind of just brings it out of them a little bit more? Like, do you need to kind of have it already in you?
I think it's more about just a level of awareness, because some students we have are just, they've never lived out of home ever. And so, and this is often the first time out of home, and they're in a different country. And so we have students that are, sometimes they're timid, they've never even heard of self-reflection. But then other students we have that are quite confident, they've achieved, they've traveled, they've done a few things. So they have a bit of a clearer idea. And I find that individuals who flock to a hospitality degree have a general understanding that hospitality requires a certain personality. So we generally do have like-minded individuals, most definitely. Sometimes we get people that really haven't really understood the brief, and they don't stay, and which is fine, that's natural. But the students, most of the students that are with us have an intention for a career in hospitality, and that is definitely, they do tend to have these similar attributes or a desire to develop those.
Mm-hmm. And where do you find that students mostly go to work? You're talking about the big chains, like where do they find themselves after graduation?
Well, this is a really interesting question, because this is very much about their own personal, like what satisfies them the most. I think we have students that come to the program for many different reasons. Some of them have been pressured by their parents. Some have just a straight up individual desire to take hospitality, do a business degree in a hospitality school. Some have got, family business. Some have got a focus. Some are of working in hospitality. Some are entrepreneurial, want to open their own hotel, want to open their own restaurant. So we have all of these different focuses and desires that we work with within our classrooms. And so it's quite interesting to see what actually happens with students, because some students will come in with a focus or no focus at all, and they'll do one subject that will just trigger something inside. Like, for example, I've had students before. For me, it often happens with human resource management and marketing, because I tend to get very excited when I talk about human resource strategy, which
I can tell it's a bit of a passion of yours.
It sure is. Yeah, I'm real fun at parties, I can tell you. Yes. So, but I've had students say that they've decided that their area of passion is now also human resources, and they've then gone off to work in human resources or marketing in a hotel. So that's always very rewarding to hear that. But it's rewarding from the perspective that they've found something they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And that's what matters at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so where do they often go off to work? I can tell you that they have opportunities to work in five-star hotels, both nationally and internationally. They have opportunities to work in really, five-star exclusive restaurants as well. So there's many opportunities. But some students leave, they go back to their own country and they work in their family business. We've got a couple of students that are here purely for the knowledge and experience to then go and take over the family business. And then we have other students that leave and they open their own businesses. So yeah, so we've got quite a range of people that and achievements once they've completed the degree.
Mm-hmm. Great. How are those attributes instilled in our students from day one?
We have an approach and a focus of treating the students as business stakeholders from day one. So, of course, we are a education institution, but we are also teaching students about business. And so, myself and my team, we ensure that the students are not only learning, as I said, about the knowledge, they're learning about the soft skills, but then we are then leading by example and holding them to business behaviors. So for example, we have a range of policies and procedures like any other business, and we have deadlines that they need to meet. We have submissions that are required to be in a certain format. So we ensure that students are understanding the reasons that we're doing these things. So we're asking for a report because we need them to not only understand or deliver the knowledge in a report format, but we want them to understand how to write a report. So when we're dealing with students on a day-to-day basis, it really is about them having an experience with their lecturer that's not only an educational experience, but it's also it's a replication of how they may interact with a boss or a manager or a team leader in the workplace. And so we want them to start becoming familiar with those types of interactions. Yeah. And so that's one of the ways that we look at instilling these values and these attributes in students, because it's a multifaceted approach, really. So we look at all these little different ways.
Yep. So from day dot, they pretty much have quite a different feel to the standard classroom, where you are an educator. At the end of the day, you are teaching them, but there's sort of more of that. It's almost like a colleague or a boss level of communication and relationship there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's exactly what it's like. So we treat them as if this is a supervisor and an employee situation to an extent, really, because there are then some situations where we have to ensure that the student, we need to kind of step back a bit and take on that softer educational type approach. But it really is that, trying to find that happy medium between the two. And the other thing that I wanted to really address as well, we have to develop our teaching and our pedagogic practices within the classroom in order to be able to engage the students and develop these skills. So I've been in classrooms before where I've, had to sit there for hours on end listening to someone bang on to a set of slides. And it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember ever doing any experiments in science?
Mm-hmm. I remember, a handful. I always tended to draw towards the more hands-on things. I couldn't sit and watch a slide for 2 hours or listen to the teacher talking over and over again. Yeah, definitely lost my interest.
I remember still to this day vividly the experiments that we did with the Bunsen burner. I remember one time I remember one that was zinc. They had these strips of zinc, and I just remember being fascinated about how I could kind of bend it and scratch it with my fingernail and stuff like that. And I still remember that to this day, even to the point where I kind of, I was with my kids in Tasmania, and there was like a crystal shop, and we were kind of even talking about the metals and stuff like that. Could I do the same remember all of the stuff from, let's say, my English class, where I sat there and just stared at the chalkboard? God, that's how old I am. So fast forward through to, bachelor degrees at Le Cordon Bleu. So we don't do that to our students. We're not going to, we know that, and like you were saying, a lot of people, the majority of people are not hardwired to sit there and listen to just dry slides. We are more about experiential learning. And I'm not going to bore you with all of the research about it, but so we've got experiential learning, and we also look at something we call social constructivism. And so we meld these two together, where we get the students and we place them in groups in the classroom. So the tables are not set up like they're, lines and lines of people, but they're in groups, lots of different groups as well. And we have activities. And it's all about assisting the student in applying the knowledge that they've gained. So there is a responsibility on the student, and the responsibility is about their own learning. And so part of what we do also is teach the students how to learn, because, and I know that probably sounds a bit simple, but some of the students are expecting to sit in the classroom and just have the information just magically transferred into their brain. But that's not how that works. So we do expect the student to do, in our in most of our subjects, we specify 3 to 5 hours of individual study per week. And so what that means is students should come to class ready to then practice the application of the knowledge that they've earned. Of course, we still have conversations about the concepts and how they apply. And of course, we do provide all of the information and recordings and the lectures in our learning management system. But when we come into the classroom, that's where we do the experience stuff. And that is where we, find the most value when students are trying to recall information, or, for that lifelong learning, being able to then look back on that and say, oh, I remember actually doing that when I was in class. So if I just my lecturer said I did a pretty good job. So if I just do that again, now I'm out in the workforce, then I'm going to be, in a good place. And that also then gives them more confidence in themselves as well.
Definitely a lot easier to absorb information that way as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do try and make our activities really interesting and relevant. Sometimes they're what we call scaffolded. So they'll do one piece, we'll look at it, then we'll have add another bit. We've also got this really cool software from Harvard. We've all heard of Harvard Business School. So we have this great software, and we do simulations. And so I teach a subject called restaurant concepts. And there's this great, so students will log in, and then they get to practice running a restaurant in this simulation software.
Cool.
And it's so cool. And the customers come in, and then you've got to sit them down, you've got to give them all a drink, and then you've got to then try and figure out where they're going to sit, but then you've got to get rid of the customers that are currently eating and get them to pay their bills and do all this stuff. So and the students are they're quite into it. So
I love that.
Quite a lot of fun.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we've got lots of different ways that we engage the students and motivate them in the classroom. So
great. Yeah. Thank you for your time and for inspiring all our amazing students in Sydney. I know they definitely appreciate having you to kind of guide them and help them realise their true passion and their dreams. So congratulations and thank you, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mastery in the Making. If you found this discussion interesting and inspiring, don't forget to share, subscribe, or tell a friend. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.